Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are comparing two of the powerhouses of the golf simulator industry, the Trackman IO and the Uneekor EYEXO2. Trackman is the biggest name brand, but it's expensive. Uneekor has been our favorite overall, but we finally had time to fully test the Trackman IO, and we're gonna let you know, is it worth the extra price, or should you go with the Uneekor EYEXO2? Let's get into it. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is accuracy, because if you guys are considering this for your home, commercial business, accuracy is a top priority in these expensive launch monitors, and I can tell you both of these fully deliver. When we're talking about ball data, these are tied for the top on the market. I would say the Trackman IO, Uneekor EYEXO2, and the Foresight Falcon are the best of the best in terms of ball data accuracy. And if I'm being honest, I don't think there's really a noticeable difference between any of these devices. I think they're the top of the line. They're gonna be within 99.9% of your actual carry yardages. And to be honest, this section is gonna be very short because there's not a whole lot to say. They're awesome. They're extremely accurate, and basically we haven't found any major issues on ball data accuracy on any of these devices. Now, every other device we've ever tested has some sort of major issue, and these happen so infrequently that I wouldn't even consider any of them a major issue. They are that good, and in terms of ball data accuracy, you're not gonna be disappointed. Now, next we're gonna talk about the features, because that's what's really gonna stand out between the Trackman and the Uneekor EYEXO2. In terms of these super expensive overhead units, they're both the most feature-rich devices on the market. To highlight the Uneekor EYEXO2 first, the thing that I love about the Uneekor EYEXO2 is the video replay of your club along with the photo impact of exactly where the ball is hitting on your club face. Now, this is something that we don't believe Trackman offered. When we were testing the device, we only saw the video replay of the club. And while we love the video replay of the club going through and hitting the ball, there's something about seeing that picture right as the club makes impact with the club face that we think is just awesome. Not only can you look at that slow-mo replay of what your club is doing, what your face angle is doing, but it also takes a picture right at impact and shows you where exactly did you strike the ball on the face, which you can kind of see from the video replay, but just having the photo just there as well really helps. Now, that is one of the features that Uneekor has an edge on, but where the Trackman has an edge on is the fact that you can get club data without the use of stickers. So what is club data for those of you who are new? Club data is essentially all the data metrics on your club. This data has no effect on what the ball is doing, so don't get that confused. Basically, your experience in-game, club data doesn't affect that. What club data is used for is for you to diagnose your swing and figure out, why is my ball going where it is? And so in terms of club data, Uneekor EYEXO2, you need stickers to get the most accurate club data. Since the Trackman is a combination of radar and photometric, it allows you to get all your club data extremely accurate without the use of stickers. Now, one of the other positives I'm gonna throw in there for features that most people don't talk about is just the usability, like how easy the devices are to use. When we use the Foresight Falcon, it has like a light that lets you know when you're ready to hit, but there'd be times where, like, if you weren't looking up at the light, a spot where the ball is, like the center of the mat, that should be ready to be hit, just wasn't ready, and you'd hit and it wouldn't read. Uneekor and Trackman have no issues with that. So how the Uneekor solves that, it has a little ding that sounds off when your ball's ready to hit. Now, you can turn that off, but that has actually been extremely useful for us, because instead of having to look up at a blinking light to make sure it's solid, you just hear the ding, you know you're good to go. And with the Trackman, if you weren't in the hitting zone, a little graphic would pop up and let you know, hey, it's not in the zone, move it in the zone. So really small feature there, but something that, like, day to day is extremely useful, and we were very impressed with the Uneekor and the Trackman in these aspects. And then one of the other features we're gonna talk about that should be just kind of obvious is the fact that they're both overhead launch monitors. So if you are just wanting to not have to deal with the complexities of lefties and righties, or you're running a commercial business and you don't want the device on the ground, the fact that they hang overhead of you just makes running any commercial business, working with lefties and righties, super easy and super simple. And then lastly, we're gonna talk about all the ball data metrics you can get and all the club data metrics. They pretty much offer all of them. So I'll just have a list right here for Uneekor, and you guys can look at that. And then we'll switch it to Trackman right now, and you can look at that. But know you're gonna get essentially every data metric you could ask for. Again, these are top of the line devices with the top of the line features and top of the line data metrics. Now next, we're gonna move on to club data. Now the reason I really wanna highlight this earlier in this video than some of the later ones is because not everyone understands that ball data and club data are very different. And what I mean by that is some people think that club data, what your club is doing and how the device reads that, affects what your ball does on the screen. So when we talked earlier about ball data accuracy being the same, that experience on the screen, how far does the ball carry, how far left or right does it go, how much is it spinning, that is our ball data metrics. Now the club data metrics, even though one of these devices is more accurate than the other in club data, know that it has no effect on your ball data. So the experience your customers will have or you will have at home in terms of how far your clubs are going, how much they're spinning, that's not going to be any different, but the club data will be different, and here's why. So club data metrics both offer great club data metrics, but with the Uneekor you need stickers to get the most accurate data. You can still get club data without stickers, but it's not going to be quite as accurate as the Trackman. What I will say with this is I bet the averages, if you were to average the club data without stickers, with stickers, I bet the averages are going to be the same as the Trackman, but I just found the Trackman's club data accuracy to just be a notch above the Uneekor. So with the Uneekor, for instance, there's a couple of times where I'll look at the video replay or the photo impact and I'll say, you know what? It says my face angle's 12 degrees closed, but I don't think so. It looks pretty good. The ball went dead straight. It felt really good. I don't think that reading is correct. Now again, doesn't affect the ball flight, but you want to see those be spot on. And just when I hit on the Trackman, it is spot on, and I never have any second guesses. Basically every metric I get, I can feel it, I can see it, and I can say, you know what? That is exactly what the metric is saying club data wise. That's exactly what is being backed up by the video. And so if you guys really want the most accurate club data and ball data together, then you're gonna want to go with the Trackman. But again, like I said, we got the video replay of our club and the photo impact with the Uneekor. So even though the club data sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure, you can see it on the video and help correct it that way. And then finally, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the fact that you get that accurate club data on the Trackman without the use of club stickers is incredible, because it means you don't have to put stickers on your buddy's clubs when they come over to get the most accurate club data. And if you're a club fitter, it's extra incredible because you don't have to put stickers on every single person who comes in to get a club fitting. Now, our next section is going to be simulator programs, and this one's actually really important, so make sure you pay attention to this. So first I want to start off with, if you're following along, ball data accuracy was a tie. Features, I would probably give a tie as well. You know, I said I like the club data a little more on the Trackman. I like the video replay and photo impact, that stuff, and how it's presented more on the Uneekor. So overall features, I think are a tie. And then club data, I gave a win to the Trackman IO. But simulator programs, I'm gonna give a huge win to the Uneekor EYEXO2 because it can be paired with GS Pro for $250 a year. Now, if you're familiar with the Trackman pricing, after you buy it, you're not really done. It's like $1,000, maybe $1,250 a year. I'll put the exact subscription fees up there. But to use their simulator program, you're paying a lot of money a year. And while the simulator program was good, we just didn't think it was as good as GS Pro. And here's a couple examples of why we don't like it as much as GS Pro. First off, we had already talked about the video replay of your club on the Trackman. Now, that shows up on the driving range, but for some reason, when you're playing course play, it just doesn't show up on your main screen. So if you want to hit and have the program run fast, that's not going to show up, and your data tiles aren't going to show up. You can counteract that by, if you have a second monitor, you can put all the data on your second monitor. But unless you really set a TV up as a second monitor in a place you can look at easily, to get all your data that you want to know when you're playing courses, you would have to go from your hitting area to that second monitor, where with GS Pro in the Uneekor EYEXO2, all your data shows up on the screen while you're playing, and then you can put kind of that video replay, photo photo impact on the side screen. So while that's kind of a small thing, it's something that we really missed when we were playing on the Trackman software. And on top of that, one of the things we didn't love about the Trackman software, by default, if you wanted to see all those data metrics, it would show up in between your shots. So what would happen is you would hit your ball, your shot would land, and then this graphic would pop up that takes around 5 seconds for you to look at all your data. Now, the issue with this, and again, this can be changed by just putting that kind of on your second monitor, this is what the commercial business running the Trackman had on. And so our round on the Trackman software took about twice as long as a normal round with GS Pro and the Uneekor EYEXO2. If we can play 18 holes, let's say in 50 minutes, me and Ryan, it would take almost an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes to play 18 holes with that pop-up graphic in between. So know that you can change that if you get the Trackman, but we weren't the biggest fan of that. Graphics, I would say, were probably better on the Trackman software slightly for some courses, but overall, we just like the interface of GS Pro and just kind of how everything was visually presented. We like that better on GS Pro. And then the final thing, and someone who owns a Trackman, correct me if I'm wrong, the green speeds just seem to be very weird on the Trackman software. And what I mean by this is if I'm hitting let's say a 60-degree chip kind of on my normal course outside, that's gonna go about 14 yards at your standard course. I can hit it over and over again. If it's got, let's say, a stimp of 9, whatever, it's gonna go 14 yards when I strike it well. On GS Pro, we have all these configuration settings where I can change the green speeds, the green hardness, and I can get that chip to go any distance I want. So if 14 is my normal, I set my green to soft, stimp to 10, and I'm gonna be rolling exactly 14 yards. Let's say I know I'm gonna play at a really hard and fast course, or maybe the ball's gonna roll 18 yards, then I can set my green speeds in GS Pro for the Uneekor EYEXO2 to a speed where it's gonna roll out to 18 yards, and I can practice all my chipping on that correct speed. But with the Trackman, both me and Ryan were kind of shocked because everything rolled extremely far, no matter how slow we turned it. So for instance, when we were playing, we turned the greens to soft, stimp of 6, which is the slowest possible you can go on a Trackman, and my 60-degree wedge chips that usually go 14 yards were going 28 yards, like double the yardage. And it was like, dude, we turned this down as slow as it can go, and it's still sailing way past anything we play around here in Michigan. So that was kind of a knock for us. So simulator program wise, we really like GS Pro more, especially for the fact that it's significantly cheaper than what it is to use the Trackman software. Now, speaking of subscription fee prices, let's get into the price of the devices because this is where it's really gonna be make or break for you guys. Trackman is significantly more expensive than the Uneekor. With the Uneekor, it retails at around $11,000. If you guys use code GolfBusters10 on the Rain or Shine Golf website, it's gonna take 5% off. So you're looking at just over $10,000. Then you're gonna have a subscription fee if you wanna use GS Pro. I believe it's $450 total a year. Now, side note, before we get into Trackman or Uneekor prices, the first year subscription is included free with the Rain or Shine Golf. So whether you go with Trackman or Uneekor, know that first year subscription, you're only gonna be paying it after year 1. Anyways, back to pricing. Uneekor EYEXO2, code GolfBusters10, just over 10 grand. Might be cheaper depending on when you're watching the video. And then subscription fees with GS Pro, it's roughly $450 a year. Again, you get the first year free. Trackman, actually way more expensive than it looks. So I'm gonna look on right now. If you get the home package, it's 14 grand. If you get the home complete package, that takes the device from 14 grand to $22,500. But here's the deal, the home package, guys, offers significantly less than the home complete package. So if I was to compare Uneekor EYEXO2 to the home package of the Trackman, I think the Uneekor blows the Trackman out of the water. It's only when you bring that home complete package into it, then when you combine the ball data and club data, then it becomes a different discussion. Because with just the regular home package, this is what you get. You get your ball data, but then the only club data you get is club speed and smash factor. Realistically with that, when you only get those club data metrics and the high subscription fees of the Trackman, I don't even think it's a discussion at that point. I would for sure go Uneekor EYEXO2. And then if you do decide to go with the home complete solution, which offers all the club data, then it's more of a legitimate kind of discussion which one you should get. But at that same time, then the Trackman jumps up to $22,500. Again, could be cheaper depending on when you're looking at this video. But with that, the subscription fee a year is $1,100. If you do go with that regular home solution, it's only $700. But like I said, I think I would much rather get the Uneekor EYEXO2 with the home package. Home complete, it's more of a debate. So if you're willing to spend the extra money, then it's probably worth it. But at the same time, that's a ton more money. Now, we've hit some pretty big areas here, but let's continue because there's a couple other big features and factors of the devices that's going to help with your decision. So first, let's talk about the setup. Honestly, maybe a little confusing the first day when you mount it to the ceiling. That takes a little bit of work, but I wouldn't expect it to take more than a day, and most of them probably take like 2 to 3 hours, and you're good to go. After that, both of these extremely simple to set up. You pretty much just turn the devices on, boot them up, boot up their software, you're good to go. Now, continuing on with setup of the devices, let's talk about the space constraints. If you're gonna get these devices, you're probably gonna want at least 15 feet of width in your room so lefties and righties can swing freely, and at least 16 feet of depth. Now, you might be able to go a little bit tighter because the hitting areas are bigger on these devices, but that's generally the hitting area size you're going to want. And speaking of hitting areas, let's talk about benefits of both of these devices. Both have big hitting areas. So we'll probably put the graphic right here of what hitting area sizes they are specifically, but if I had to guess off the top of my head, I bet you got a 2 foot wide hitting area by 3 feet deep, maybe even bigger. It might be 3 feet wide, but they're both extremely large that it's not even something you think about when buying it because they both have huge hitting areas. All right, next, let's talk about responsiveness of the devices from when you hit the ball to when it shows up on the screen. Both top of the line responsiveness gonna show up almost instantly. And continuing with the top of the line trend, let's talk about putting. Both of these have top of the line putting accuracy, but I need you to get a little closer because we're gonna talk about the hill we are willing to die on. Do not putt on a golf simulator, use the auto putt features. Here is why. And if you're running a commercial business, get extra close because this is very important. So if you're gonna have 4 people play 18 holes, it's gonna take about an hour extra if you have them all putt on the simulator. And to be honest, we don't think putting on a simulator makes you better at putting in real life. Well, all the other stuff will make you better at golf in real life. So in our opinion, we think just use the auto putt features, play more holes in a shorter amount of time. And the reason I say this, if you're going to run a commercial business, do you think people will be happier playing 9 holes in 2 hours or being able to get close to 18 holes? I think that answers itself. Now that decision is up to you, but it's just a hill we're willing to die on in every video, and we wanted to talk about it so you know. Okay, next, let's talk about lefties and righties. If you're considering a golf simulator, these are the perfect devices for lefties and righties because they are overhead. You don't have to move it. It just sits up there. Lefties and righties can hit seamlessly. Okay, next, let's move on to what are the cons of both devices? What are the issues we found with both of the devices? So for the Uneekor EYEXO2, I would say the number one con for me is the fact that to get the most accurate club data, you have to put club stickers on your club. I don't like that. But a benefit, you still get club data without the use of club stickers. It just won't be quite as individually shot-to-shot accurate, but overall your averages should be pretty similar. In devil's advocate to that, you do get an awesome video replay and photo impact of your club. I don't want to say that renders the club data metrics useless, but realistically, when we're playing, we're looking at the video replay and the photo impact over what the club data says because it's a lot easier to visually see what's going on than like try to understand numbers on kind of a smaller basis. And then finally, maybe the only other quirk, I would say maybe 1 in every 10 rounds, we get a shot with the Uneekor where like the spin is off and maybe the carry yardage is off, but like I almost don't want to mention that because it has the fewest like misreads of the ball of any device we've ever tested. So that happens from time to time, but overall, like I really don't have much. The Uneekor is an awesome device. There's a reason we paid our own money to get it in our simulator, and there's a reason we use it all the time, even if maybe the club data metrics are not quite as accurate as the Trackman IO. Now, next, let's move on to the cons of the Trackman IO. Big one for us is going to be the price. If you want to get the similar comparison to the Uneekor EYEXO2, you're going with the home complete solution, which is $22,500 plus $1,100 a year in subscription fees. That's insanely high. That is Trackman knowing that they are the industry standard, the top of the line, and they're charging for it. The next con we're gonna talk about, I would say, is I don't love their program as much as GS Pro. I'm a bigger fan of GS Pro and its customizability and the default pace of play. Now, you can switch around the Trackman settings to get it to play almost as fast as GS Pro and play around as quick as possible, but I think a lot of people who buy it may not dig that deep into it to get it to that point. So I like the fact that GS Pro right off the rip is gonna help people play as fast rounds as possible. And then finally, we're gonna talk about more of a con with the Trackman program as opposed to like the device itself. We found that the green speeds, like we said earlier, just were way faster than they should be. Even when we turned them down as slow as possible, chips that would usually go 14 yards were going twice that at 28. So maybe that was something we did wrong in the settings, but we did set it to soft in a stimp of 6, which is as slow as possible, and they were still rolling crazy fast, right? Ryan, can you attest to that?
Green speeds on Trackman, crazy fast.
Like even when we set them at the slowest settings.
Slowest settings still literally like an 8-yard chip, and we're just flying it past the green.
Heard it from my boy Ryan. He agrees. Yeah, but besides that, guys, not a lot of cons. I mean, small program con with the Trackman, which they could just fix in an update, and then the price, which is like, that's it. And the Uneekor, just club data, not quite as accurate as the club data on the Trackman. And if you're someone skipping around the video, reminder, club data does not affect how accurate the ball reads and how accurate your shots are going to be on the screen. Now, final thoughts. I think the Uneekor EYEXO2 is going to be the buy in almost every instance besides a few specific instances. So first off, if you are running a commercial business where it's more about playing rounds of golf, people are drinking at bars, that kind of thing, I think the Uneekor EYEXO2 is 100% the buy. I think the playing experience is just as good, if not better, than the Trackman, and it's significantly cheaper. If you're gonna get a simulator for your home, I also think the Uneekor EYEXO2 is the way to go. Now, that being said, if you were doing a fitting or kind of more of a professional, like teaching business, then I would go with the Trackman IO. And the final test, if I could have any of these for free and not have to pay any money, what would I go with? Honestly, I would go with the Uneekor EYEXO2. With the ball data accuracy being the same, with it having the photo impact of your club face, with me liking GS Pro as a software just overall better than the Trackman software, I think if I could have any one, I would go with the Uneekor for my home and for just me to have. Now, that being said, they are both incredible options, and there's a reason they are #1 and #2 devices out of any golf device. Now, if you want to get the Uneekor EYEXO2 or the Trackman IO as cheap as possible, use our codes and links below, and if you have any more questions, you can email us at golfbustersofficial@gmail.com, and we'll see you in the next one.